going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of best bets and props. This time it's for UFC Paris. Tuivasa taking on Gane in the main event at heavyweight. Co-main event is a middleweight clash between two former, one's a former title holder, one's a former title challenger. Both have lost to Israel Adesanya a couple times apiece. None other than Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori. It should be a fun night of fights. First time in Paris for the UFC. Post-COVID era, we're back to our world domination, taking over the world and shoving the UFC and mixed martial arts down their throats. And after a week off last week, I always do this to myself where I end up having maybe a little bit more betting action than I had planned on having. These lines dropped quite early, and I got ahead of a lot of the line movement. So we're going to go over all the moneyline bets and props I have. 5 moneyline bets and 4 props. So I've got 3 favorites, 2 underdogs. And out of those 4 props, a lot of them contain ties to the same fight. So starting off top to bottom here, I've got Gane. The money line price at minus 570. This was by mistake. I parlayed, and once again, it bit me in the butt a little bit. I had Ricardo Ramos parlayed with Gane for 2 units. That combined parlay would have paid out probably something like a unit or so. But yeah, Ricardo Ramos no longer on the card. We have Gane. And I'm not mad about it. You know, minus 570 implies 85% probability. So, I mean, I don't think that's far off in this fight against Tuivasa. Gane has much better striking diversity. I think he's just got all the measurables and tail of the tape advantage, aside from, you know, being a little bit older, but still a young heavyweight. And he's faced power guys before. He's faced Francis Ngannou most recently in 5 rounds. Didn't get knocked out by Francis. He faced, you know, Rosenstrike over 5 rounds, didn't get knocked out by him. Volkov couldn't really even touch him. And yeah, I think all of these things have prepared him for this moment, and I think he's faced much tougher tests than Tuivasa. I think Gane gets him out of there inside the distance and makes it look, you know, maybe frustrates Tuivasa. Maybe he takes it a little bit later than round 1 or round 2 and wears on Ty's gas tank. Tuivasa has not really faced somebody like this before, so not many guys move as well as Gane. There are a couple key spots I see, you know, Tuivasa able to get the advantage over Gane, but there are very key moments that he would have to capitalize on and look a lot more improved in this fight. Check out my full card breakdown where I kind of go over that, my feelings on that in more detail for all of these fights. Moving on to the next money line is Nasrat Haqparast to defeat John Makdessi. Nasrat Haqparast minus 215 on the money line. I got him at put 2.15 units to win 1. This is a lightweight bout. Again, tail of the tape advantages in the measurables and the age. 10 years younger for Nasrat Haqparast. And although he's coming off 2 losses, this almost makes this a buy low spot on Nasrat, the much younger, bigger guy here with a bigger upside in his career. You know, John Makdessi has been somewhat impressive in the UFC, just the fact that he's been in the UFC for 12 plus years at this point, but he's coming off of almost a 1.5 year long layoff. He did beat the only guy that's still on the roster, I think, that he's got a win over was Ignacio Bahamondes, a young 23-year-old, struggled to maintain distance and lost the decision to John Makdessi. That was a 1.5 years ago almost. I think it was maybe early April of 2021, so I think a couple surgeries or so for John Makdessi. You know, the retirement age is in the question here at 37 years old and this long of a UFC career. You know, John Makdessi not really impressed me over the years that much other than his longevity. He does have good counter-striking off of his back foot, but I think he'll fall behind on the striking metrics here and maybe even get put out inside the distance by Nasrat Haqparast. Who knows? I'm really predicting a regression in skill in the aged Makdessi and an improvement in the young and upcoming Nasrat Haqparast, who has had quite a couple of challenges with Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, both styled on him. Now this is a big step down in competition I'm expecting. So I got him on the money line pretty confidently. The next one is an underdog, Faraz Ziam at plus 160. I think that money line has actually moved where you can get a better plus number on him as well over the newcoming Mike Figlak from Cage Warriors. Undefeated Mike Figlak, I believe he's like 8-0 professionally, went on a 6-0 run in the Cage Warriors promotion. So he's got good regional scene experience. He's coming over here. This is a fight where at lightweight, Faraziam has got the measurables. He's taller. He's a longer mover. He's a really good kickboxer. Very low output. I will give him that. And he can get put on his back in certain spots and controlled. So Mike Figlak will certainly pressure forward, look to put Faraz on his back or at least against the cage. I think he's going to struggle to get in range against Faraziam. Who knows, this being his debut, he might have a little bit of apprehension to push. The forward pressure is fast and early. I think it might take Mike Figlak a little bit to warm up to this fight. Meanwhile, Faraziam has got very good pull counters, very good ability to strike off of his back foot as a kickboxer. And if I can expect at plus 160 odds, the guy with 4 UFC fights so far in Faraziam, certainly at least at the bottom of the barrel or middling level at the UFC, against an unproven guy, I get plus money on him. And all I got to do is just have Faraziam win one round, probably the first round, and then, stay on his feet and outstrike Mike Figlak coming in for the majority of one of the other 2 rounds. Probably round 2 and then round 3. Maybe it looks like the Vendramini fight and he gets put on his back and wins a close decision. I like the decision prop for Faraziam too. I think he does this, and this fight goes over most of the time. I think he wins by decision most of the time. But, I'm already getting plus money, so let's not get fancy on this one. Faraziam, 1 unit on the plus 160 price tag. Moving on to a bigger favorite now, and probably one of my more confident picks on this card besides Cyril Gane. This is Benoit Saint-Denis taking on Gabriel Miranda, a guy who's taking him on short notice. I believe Saint-Denis was supposed to fight Christos Giagos. Giagos out, Gabriel Miranda in. Kind of a padded record for Miranda, who's a BJJ fighter, just like Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis is a very tough, as we saw in his first fight last year, is a very tough guy, hard to put away, almost impossible. He's got decent cardio even when he's sustaining damage. And, the majority of his wins were all by finish before that fight against Dos Santos in his debut, which he showed he can still go a hard 15 for sure. So he's got the youth, he's got the cardio, the toughness, and he's got very good submissions, but very good striking as well. I think he can knock out Gabriel Miranda. Miranda's got very poor striking offense and defense. Very content to play BJJ off of his back as Miranda. And I think Saint-Denis is going to get this done inside the distance. But I'm taking his money line, minus 260 to win 1 unit. I'm very confident in Saint-Denis to get this done however he sees fit against the debutant Miranda. Next up, the 5th money line and the final one I have is another underdog. This is Christian Quinones making his UFC debut coming off the Dana White Contender Series last year. At first glance against Khalid Taha, this is a short notice spot, but Quinones came off that win on the Dana White Contender Series over Zhao Long last October, so he's been itching to get a fight, I'm sure, for a long time here. He's had some matchups scheduled that fell through. So at plus 125 odds, I like Quinones here. Khalid Taha is going to be the smaller man here. I like Quinones' ability to go a hard, not only 15 minutes, but a hard 25 he showed in his last fight before that Contender Series win. I like Quinones to win a decision here, murder the calf of Khalid Taha, maintain distance. He's got very good kickboxing. His takedown defense leaves some to be desired, but his offense on the takedowns is decent as well. So I think he's got a very good array of skills to come into the UFC and make a big statement here against Khalid Taha. Not a big statement as in finish the guy, but I think take him to a decision. He's got a good chance of winning this one by points. Now that the line has moved down and I think Quinones is entering like minus money, maybe even switching to the favorite, I don't like that as much. I like the spot I got where you're like, you're plus 110 to plus 125 where I got him. I like that. If you start having to pay chalk on him, I don't care for that bet as much. And I don't hate anybody taking Khalid Taha if it flips to him being plus money with his UFC experience. And I don't hate especially the Khalid Taha by inside the distance finish because I've seen people with some big plus numbers on Khalid Taha to win by knockout. Don't hate that either. I don't see it happening really, but I think if Khalid does win this fight, it will be inside the distance. If it goes to the scorecards, I like Quinones to win here. Just a big diversity of strikes. He's a very clean mover, and he's definitely belonging to be in the UFC here after destroying his last 2 opponents. So those are the money lines. 3 favorites, 2 underdogs. Moving on to some props, and as I mentioned, the first 3 props I have, 3 out of 4, are all concerning the Cyril Gane Tuivasa fight. So first off is Cyril Gane inside the distance at minus 165. I'm paying the price to win 1 unit on that. I do think that Cyril Gane, whether he's a slow starter or not, whether he's a point fighter or not, he does have power. He does have all of the measurables in this fight. And I think that, we're expecting Tai Tuivasa to go a scheduled 5 rounds here. I don't think he makes it. He's been to decision 2 times, and one he lost, one he won. He didn't look exactly the greatest in round 3 in either of those. I mean, it's going to be very taxing to stay ready to go for that knockout shot for 5 rounds. Whether he's stalking and advancing Ciryl Gane or backpedaling and staying away from the stance switching, the constant side kicks to the thigh of Tai Tuivasa, it's going to, wear in his gas tank. He's a big guy weighing in at that heavyweight limit generally. So I really do think Ciryl Gane will knock him out. I see people taking the flyer on Ciryl Gane by submission. You better get a big plus number on that because the submissions are quite rare at heavyweight. I mean, just looking back in the history of, how many heavyweight, main events especially, submission wins can you think of? Like, Frank Mir back in the day was the best guy at heavyweight with submissions. He had like 8, I think was the record. Current guys, I think Alexei Oleinik has the most with like 6 or 7. Below that, there's really not many prolific submission heavyweights, right? Like you got Romanov with 3, and then I think it falls down to Aspinall and Ciryl Gane with 2 apiece. So it's super rare that it happens. It could happen. He's got a path there, but I think the clubbing in the club and sub part of that sequence gets Tai Tuivasa out of there. I think eventually some body shots or some elbows against the cage will be the demise of Tai Tuivasa. But if Tai Tuivasa wins, I think it's by knockout, and I think it's early in this fight, right? All of his knockouts in his last 5 knockout win streak have all been under 1.5 rounds. So I think it would be safe to assume if he knocks out Ciryl Gane, it'll be under 1.5 rounds. So I took the insurance props on this one. Fight does not go to decision, minus 230, put a unit on that. Under 3.5 rounds, I put a unit on that at minus 145. I like both of those. That ensures Tai Tuivasa getting the... And by the way, I'm a big fan of Tai Tuivasa. I hope he gets this knockout. That would be hilarious. And I want to see him chugging beer out of his shoe in Paris. That's fun for everybody. So under 3.5 guarantees that. Doesn't guarantee, but it's most likely. Fight doesn't go to decision in a 5-round heavyweight scrap. I like that a lot. I'm sorry, I put 2 units on that one. So 2 units on fight doesn't go. 1 unit on the under 3.5. Ciryl Gane inside the distance. All 3 of those constitute 3 of my 4 props in this card. The 4th one is Robert Whittaker to win by decision at minus 125. Paying the price to win 1 unit on that. Marvin Vettori is super tough here. I think this money line should be closer than what it is. But Vettori's never been knocked out. He's never even been knocked down. He's got a cinder block for a head. We've talked about it, ad nauseum. Whittaker is 9-3 in decisions. His last 4 fights, all decisions. 6 of his last 7 go to decision. Marvin Vettori, likewise, 12 fights in the UFC for Marvin Vettori, the Italian dream. And 10 of those 12 have gone to decision. So both of these guys like to go over. We're going to be looking for Vettori to challenge with the takedown threat. He's going to struggle with the speed of Whittaker. He's going to struggle with the striking output numbers of Whittaker. And he's going to struggle with Whittaker's 83% takedown defense. So I like Robert Whittaker to win. But, Vettori's always game enough to... I just got this feeling about Vettori. I like his competitive mindset. I think he is a young enough guy to make improvements. He trains at a great camp. So does Robert Whittaker. All of these things apply to both guys. But, to transform that minus 220, minus 240 price tag on Whittaker that I don't feel comfortable paying against Vettori, I can pay minus 125, just wager that for Vettori to lose in the most, expected way. Robert Whittaker to win by decision. So I like that. Those are the props. Other ones that I do like, I like the overs in Whittaker and Vettori. I like the overs in that fight. You can get a fair price on fight goes. I like the unders in the William Gomez, Yarno Aarons. I like that. So 2 debutants with a lot of finishers in their record. I don't want to get involved with this fight too much, especially picking a side. The money line is a little strange. I don't have a great read on either guy. This is almost like a regional scene fight transplanted into a fight night card. But I like the unders in that one. 2 young guys, might be a little bit nervous, might want to try to push the action and get one of the other out of there. They've got a history of doing that. So I like the unders in that fight. And I like Abus Magomedov, and I like Nasruddin Imavov as well. But those are 2 fights where I got the long layoff of Abus Magomedov, and I got the power and the explosivity of Joaquin Buckley looking back at me against Imavov. So although I'm really confident Abus and Imavov win, just couldn't get to the money line on those guys. I'm just not that confident to put my money on it. especially when I have all of this action on the other money lines. I don't want to get too involved with that, but I do recommend those. I like those plays a lot, and they're both favorites, so I'm not really like, giving out a hot take there. But yeah, you can check out my live stream I did with Mike at the Couch Warrior podcast. We had a great live stream last night. Amazing time talking about all these fights, trading opinions. We agreed on most, but we also disagreed on like 2 or 3 of them. So go check that out. And at the end, I gave my 3 favorite props. I think I covered those in this video here. But check out Mike's favorite props, his top 3. At the end, he gave out absolute gold. He's a great MMA content creator and personality on Twitter. Give him a follow. Tell him Addicted to Combat sent you, and go watch that video. We had a good time. And yeah, I mean, I'll talk to you guys on Sunday for the recap. I'm excited for these early fights, at least in the States and the Midwest. It's going to start at like 11 a.m., 12 p.m. I love the early start time for these fights. And I'll talk to you guys on Sunday for the recap. Leave a comment below on your favorite plays for this fight card. Welcome back to the UFC. We're entering Paris, France with a heavyweight main event banger. So I'm excited. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers.